Bhagavatam ki jai. Thakur Premanande Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 13, The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. Text 45 and 46. Kastam prajabadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha pandito bahumanyata yadartha kleshadagriha. Kastam prajabadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha pandito bahumanyata yadartha kleshadagriha. Kastam prajabadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha pandito bahumanyata yatartha kleshadagriha. Prajabadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha pandito bahumanyata Kastam Prajapadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha nito vaimanyata kleshadagriha. Kastam Prajapadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha yadartha kleshadagriha. Mataji's. Kastam prajabadesham vai moham bandhanam atmanaha pandito bahumanyata yadartha kleshadagriha. Kastam prajabadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha bahumanyata kleshadagriha. Kastam prajabadesham vai moha bandhanam atmanaha pandito bahumanyata yadartha kleshadagriha. Tvartikaha who tam him prajapadesham son in name only, why certainly, moha of illusion, bandhanam bondage, atmanaha for the soul, panditaha intelligent man, bahumanyata would value, yad artaha because of whom, kleshada painful, kriha home. Translation: Who, if he is considerate and intelligent, would desire such a worthless son? Such a son is nothing but a bond of illusion for the living entity, and he makes one's home miserable. Text 46. Katapatyam brahmanye sadapatya chucham padat nirvityata grihan martya yatklasha nivaha griha. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Then the king thought, a bad son is better than a good son, because a good son creates an attachment for home, whereas a bad son does not. A bad son creates a hellish home, from which an intelligent man naturally becomes very easily detached. Purport. The king began to think in terms of attachment and detachment from one's material home. According to Prahlad Maharaj, the material home is compared to a blind well. If a man falls down into a blind well, it is very difficult to get out of it and begin life again. Prahlad Maharaj has advised that one give up this blind well of home life as soon as possible and go to the forest to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Vedic civilization, this giving up of home by Vanaprastha and sannyas is compulsory. But people are so attached to their homes that even up to the point of death, they do not like to retire from home life. King Anga therefore, thinking in terms of detachment, accepted his bad son as a good impetus for detachment from home life. He therefore considered his bad son his friend, since he was helping him become detached from his home. Ultimately, one has to learn how to detach oneself from attachment to material life. Therefore, if a bad son, by his bad behavior, helps a householder to go away from home, it is a boon. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Deham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshta Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahagana Rakunatan Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamshcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Vancha Kalpadurubhyascha Kripa Sindhyubha Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming. So we are hearing, actually, Yuvi Prabhu already nicely explained that part of how King Anga was, as we heard previously, unable to get a son. Then he finally, by performing a sacrifice to please Lord Vishnu, then upon the instruction of the Brahmanas, then that personality came out of the sacrificial fire, gave some sweet rice prasadam, to which then King Anga gave to his wife, and but as we heard, she was not actually qualified because of her being the daughter of death personified, and so consequently the son that she gave birth to was Vena, who was so cruel right from his childhood, as we heard that he was even killing his playmates whimsically, just for fun. And then we heard in the yesterday's verses, I believe, how Maharaj Anga was trying to correct him, to make him into a good son, and because son obviously in this case meant prince, then later on king. So it was of special importance. So King Anga tried very hard, but nothing worked. And so now he comes to the point where, as though initially lamenting about how unfortunate he is that those who have no son at all is even better, rather than having such a bad son who is simply giving trouble. But then he comes to the realization, and then today's second verse, how he's then suddenly saying, actually a bad son is even better than a good son, because a good son creates attachment for home, whereas a bad son does not. A bad son creates a hellish home from which an intelligent man naturally becomes very easily detached. So, yeah, here we come to one of those classic sections in Bhagavatam which completely challenge our material intelligence and expose how spiritual life is supremely important, that actually such difficult, bad, so-called circumstances materially can even be taken as a great boon, as Maharaj Anga does here. And Srila Prabhupada, in the first part of the purport, he talks basically about a famous verse that Prahlad Maharaj speaks, and anyone can tell whom he, like Prabhupada says here, that according, where is it? That, I can't find it now, but basically it says that Prahlad Maharaj gives us this advice, so which generally we would think, obviously, would be to some very qualified people or even devotees. Yeah, here Prahlad Maharaj has advised that one give up this blind well of home life as soon as possible and go to the forest to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But anyone can tell whom does he speak that verse 2? Yeah. So that verse was the very first time when Prahlad Maharaj he was, of course, going to the school of the teachers who were sons of the spiritual master of the demons of Shukracharya, so Shanda and Amarka were leading that Asura kul. Thank you very much. So, and trying to, of course, very intensely trying to teach them all those seemingly important topics of how to distinguish friend from enemy and how to make politics for your favorable way and all of that. And obviously, as we know, Prahlad Maharaj, he didn't like that. But still he humbly sat there apparently taking in the instructions, but actually not letting anything go into his heart, just for the sake of being simultaneously apparently a good son of his supremely demonic father, Hiranyakashipu, and but internally being fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And so, but still, so then externally it looks like he's learning very nicely. The Shanda and Marka, they were thinking that, out of all the students, this Prahlad, he's the best one. He's so sincere, so submissive, hearing so nicely. So then they're inspired, thinking that we will get special mercy of the ruler of the universe of Hiranyakashipu if we show him, giving some exhibition of how nicely we're teaching this Prahlad Maharaj, well, Prahlad for them. And so then one day they sent him to Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu famously asks him, very, like in a very affectionate exchange, not as like testing him or anything, but simply as a loving exchange from father to son. He asks him, my dear son, please tell me what is the best thing that you learned so far in school. And then Prahlad Maharaj tells this verse. It goes, Tatsajumanye Suryavaryadehinam Sada Samudvigna Diyam Asatgrahat Hidvatmapatam Grihamandakopam Vanam Gatoya Tarimashrayeta. Which where Prahlad Maharaj tells, and like that itself is like so amazing and inspiring to always meditate on, that devotees, how, like I briefly touched on that last time, how fearless Prahlad Maharaj was, and but how that fearlessness comes from, not from any kind of false pride or material qualifications, like, which is so apparent in his case, because he was a 5-year-old boy, and there was this most powerful Hiranyakashipu, whom all the demigods were scared of, that the sun would adjust exactly to his desires just by him looking at the sun, and all of that. So, but yeah, Prahlad Maharaj, by his completely having taken shelter of Krishna, he was so fearless that right away the first thing he tells to his father is, "Oh my dear, best of the demons," which that itself, okay, yeah, that is a compliment for Asurya Varya, the best of the Asuryas. That he tells him right away that actually Sadasu Samudvigna Diyama Satgrahad, that one's mind is in material life, it is always as long as one's mind is all like absorbed in material life, it's always on the asad, on the temporary. And so when you're absorbed like that, then you're naturally always sadasa mudvigna, you're always full of anxiety. No matter how, my dear father, you might be so powerful that you apparently have everything under your control. But as long as your mind is materially absorbed, you cannot control your own mind even. And naturally, then you're always full of anxiety. And therefore, then he advises him, as Prabhupada explains here, that, "Oh dear father, please, so hitvatma patam griham andakupam, or give up this andakupa, this blind well of material life, and vanam gatoyat darimasharayata, and go to the forest," which Prabhupada explains there specifically refers to Vrindavan, because it said darimasharayata, because there to do what? To take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And obviously we know Hiranyakashipu, his whole existence was focused on hating Lord Vishnu. And there Prahlad Maharaj tells him that, yes, that's the best I can tell you, I learned, that that's what you should do. Give up everything, you have worked so hard to conquer the whole universe, just give it up, go to the forest and take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And obviously, we know the story. Initially, Hiranyakashipu didn't take it seriously. He sent him back, and then it goes on a few times until eventually Hiranyakashipu personally tries to even kill Prahlad Maharaj, and then Lord Nrsimhadev obviously appears and finishes him. But yeah, but it's amazing how devotees can be so fearless and speak, and of course also being simply, it also shows how he was a small boy, but he had such full realization of transcendental knowledge, as later on then also, or in between, he gives even to his schoolmates, gives like such amazing instructions there in 7th canto. So how as a 5-year-old child, obviously he couldn't do that by his own intelligence, which anyway is not possible, as he later tells again to Hiranyakashipu in Matyana Krishna Paratasvatova, that you cannot turn your mind towards Krishna by your own endeavor or help of others or anything. But that's only possible then by taking the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees. So, and yeah, so which by him meant submissively hearing from Narada Muni, even while he was in the womb. And yeah, so, and then another point that Prabhupada makes in the purport, which is like basically from the verse itself, that Maharaj Anga was able to, by his contemplation and to actually come to the conclusion that, as we said initially, he was lamenting about his bad fortune, having such a bad son, so much trouble. But then it completely flipped around as soon as he connected it to Krishna, as soon as he realized actually, basically as soon as he saw the hand of Krishna in it, that actually this whole situation is such great mercy of the Lord to make me help, because otherwise I would be too miserly, I would be attached to my kingdom, to my family. But by giving me this situation, the Lord is helping me to take shelter of him. And so much so that he tells here that this son is actually, like Prabhupada in the purport, he tells that he therefore considered his bad son his friend, since he was helping him become detached from his home. So, yeah, that is like another amazing point, how not only that we as devotees may learn to slowly to tolerate difficulties and understanding, okay, happiness and distress, it just comes. Being in material world and according to our karma, to our previous deeds, we did so many sinful activities, so naturally we have to expect miseries, and but somehow we try to remember Krishna, so we tolerate and to some extent transcend them. Yes, that's one level to begin with, but actually, as we see here, eventually devotees can come to the point of not only tolerating, but directly feeling grateful for taking such situations as, like here, such a horrible son as one's friend. And yeah, that is another level of actually how to appreciate things that we might encounter in material life. And specifically, I'll try to keep that short because tell other things as well, but there's one very amazing example of being able to take someone as one's friend. I mean, there's many examples, even Haridas Thakur or Namacharya, or not sure exactly if he said as friend, but similarly he was, when he was beaten on the marketplace, he was also not feeling any kind of resentment to the persons who were beating him, but rather was praying for their deliverance, because of which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was couldn't kill them, but instead, as we know, embraced Haridas Thakur to protect him. But yeah, there's one amazing example of Kuresh Alva, who was from the Sri Sampradaya, some might have heard, a disciple of Ramanujacharya. So he was initially, like, he was a very rich land owner. Told her that that's wrong. His name comes from that this land Kura he owned, and so therefore is Kuresh. And anyway, I can't tell the whole story because it takes too much time. But yeah, one day he just, after having been called out by Mother Lakshmi herself in her deity form there at with Varada Raj, who was close by as one of the main deities there in South India. He took rather than taking it, oh, I'm so great that Goddess of Fortune is calling me, eventually he concluded feeling that, oh, she's glorifying my, because he and his wife, whatever wealth they had, everything they would just freely, the whole day, the gates of the palace would be open and they would just give in charity. Everyone could come and take as whatever they wanted. And so when Mother Lakshmi called for him that she wants to see him through another pure devotee, Kanchipura, Purna is the place, Kanchipurna, and who was always talking with or was able to face-to-face talk with the Lord. Sorry. And but yeah, Kuresh, rather than feeling elated that, oh, I'm getting this mercy, the Goddess of Fortune wants to bless me, he took it as, actually she's exposing me that I have this false ego thinking I can give so much charity. And so instead what he did was then he gave away everything to the Brahmanas, and from that day onwards he and his wife, they became beggars, and they traveled towards Sri Rangam, where his spiritual master Ramanujacharya was. Anyway, then many things happened, but eventually at one point, which is for this in terms of taking someone as one's friend in an amazing way, that Ramanujacharya had three specific desires of his predecessor, Yamunacharya, that he wanted to fulfill, and one of them was writing a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Wait, I'm trying to remember. That whole thing connects. But anyway, the thing was that at one point, because Ramanujacharya was establishing more and more pure devotional service there, and defeating the Mayavadis and the other Shivites and everyone. And there was one king who was Mayavadi and the so-called devotee of Lord Shiva, but who was very envious. And actually he had a minister who was previously a disciple of Kuresh, but who turned against him. And so much so that that minister told the king that that if you want to try to establish Lord Shiva as the supreme, as you believe, then you have to get rid of this Ramanujacharya. And so therefore you should invite him for a challenge. And and the plan was, and if you can't defeat him with your scholars in debate, then somehow you gotta kill him. And so Kuresh, he somehow could understand, and then that was the plan. So when those he told Ramanujacharya that actually I know that they have bad intentions, because obviously some messengers were sent to Sri Rangam to invite Ramanujacharya, along with his spiritual master Mahapurna. And so Kuresh told Ramanujacharya that I know that they have very bad intentions, so what we have to do is, because Kuresh said, you're such a great acharya, thousands of people, millions of people are depending on your mercy, your instructions. So if anything would happen to you, it would be such a great loss to the world. Whereas I'm such an insignificant living being. If anything happens to me, no one bothers. And Ramanujacharya, hearing the sincere, intense request of Kuresh, he, thinking about it with a heavy heart, he actually agreed. And so therefore he changed into his sannyas dress into the dress of Kuresh, for householder, and Kuresh took on the sannyas dress, and so disguised himself as Ramanujacharya, And in that way, him and Mahapurna then went to the court of that king. And there, of course, even though he brought all the greatest scholars of his kingdom, they easily defeated them, established pure devotional service to Lord Vishnu, Krishna, as the only real eternal occupation of every living being, and the only thing that can make everyone happy. And so, not budging from, and they, of course, the king, of course, he pushed them that if you like hold on to this position, then you'll be punished. And so much so that then the king makes his servants take the two of them, Kuresh, as apparently as Ramanujacharya, and Mahapurna, to get them tortured, because actually there was a story behind it why he couldn't directly kill Ramanujacharya, because he had released his sister much early on in life when she was haunted by a ghost. And so therefore he ordered them to torture them, so much so that to actually cruelly pluck out the eyes from Kuresh and Mahapurna. And at that time, Kuresh, now we're coming to that point that rather than like externally, obviously, it was like excruciating pain, how they were being tortured. But while going through that external torture, Kuresh, rather than feeling any kind of resentment against the people who were torturing him, he took them as his best friends. How is that? Because he was feeling, first of all, he was feeling that, oh, how is it like there's this powerful king, ministers, servants, everyone who are materially like so much more powerful, wealthy, everything. Because externally, remember, Kuresh by the time he had given up everything, so he didn't have any wealth or anything, any position, and so he felt like that. How is it like all these apparently great people? They don't know you, my dear Lord. They have no idea of who they really are, of who you are, of what they are supposed to do to be actually happy. But here I am, so insignificant, and you have given me this knowledge, this realization that my whole life is simply for your pleasure. And then further on, Kuresh was thinking, so, and not only that, but now you're giving me this supreme benediction of me being such an insignificant living being, insignificant disciple of my great spiritual master Ramanujacharya. But you're giving me this, and service to the spiritual master is like the highest thing. Like without, as we know, even touched on from Prahlad Maharaj, without the mercy of devotees, especially from a spiritual master, there's practically no possibility of being able to take up to bhakti and perform devotional service. So Kuresh was feeling that, like, yeah, these people who apparently are torturing me, they are actually giving me this supreme opportunity to render some little, so-called, little service to my spiritual master by, on his behalf, accepting this suffering. And in this way, he was able to accept those very people who were giving him such torture as his best friends, for by them torturing him, were giving him the opportunity to be of some service to Ramanujacharya. And although, of course, even Kuresh Alva himself, as Alva means already that he's one of those special pure devotees in Sri Sampradaya, I think 12 Alvas, or how many, like Andal and so on. So, and he also had many disciples. But yeah, that's how he felt. And that's how he was able to take those persons as his very best friends. And yeah. So, and now coming to some parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita, however much time we have. because obviously this point of seeing, or basically in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, directly turning so-called enemies into friends, is something that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did very frequently, actually, throughout his pastimes, especially when he went outside of Jagannath Puri, traveling in South India, or also what we're gonna touch on, and traveling to Vrindavan, or even just towards Vrindavan, actually, because last time we were discussing a bit how when the Navadvip devotees were coming every year to Jagannath Puri, and they had Ratha Yatra and all those pastimes, and then we discussed about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya inviting inviting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who got blasphemed by Amoga, and then Amoga got delivered eventually by Mahaprabhu. And actually, that time I had to rush through one important point there, which he didn't really point out, is how the whole reason, obviously, for Amoga, who was supposed to die of cholera very, very quickly, just by pointing out that, how can this sannyasi eat so much alone? And in that way blaspheming the Supreme Lord, that instead Mahaprabhu personally went and placed his hand on Amoga's chest and talked about, he gave very beautifully, he talked to him and gave him ecstatic love of Krishna. But Mahaprabhu himself there, he actually tells at one point after Amoga, because Amoga, when he, after jumping up with a rejuvenated externally and especially internally, being in ecstatic love, chanting the holy name of Krishna, then after that, then he begged for forgiveness of Mahaprabhu and began actually slapping his own face very hard, so much so that he got already swollen, and then Gopinath Acharya stopped him. And then Mahaprabhu told him actually the reason why he got that mercy, because then he told him that you're the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Shatira Mata, his wife, who were both pure devotees. And so, therefore, you're naturally an object of affection for me. And so much so, Mahaprabhu told him that everyone in the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, even his maids, his servants, even, Mahaprabhu says, even his dogs. I don't know, I doubt that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would have had dogs in his house, but in Vedic culture. But in any case, Mahaprabhu, at least to emphasize that how dear the devotees are to him, that even someone as considered as low, especially in Vedic culture, as a dog, is very dear to him. So, and Prabhupada explains there that, so this is, that was the only qualification actually of Amoga to receive that mercy, of instead of dying miserably and then also suffering whatever much he would have had from his offense, instead he got ecstatic love of Godhead. And so that's, for us, as we touched on before, that's always our foundational sambandha to Krishna, that although we are all parts and parcels of Krishna, we should never foolishly think that directly we can just get the mercy and ignore his innumerable other devotees. And so rather, our place of getting his mercy is always through his devotees, in our case, of course, specifically through Srila Prabhupada. And so that's something to keep there in mind. But now coming to, so after that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as he had initially, immediately when taking sannyas, he had, the desire to go to Vrindavan only. And then his devotees diverted him to Shantipur, and then there they brought Madhasachi, who then was asking him to instead live in Jagannath Puri, so that she could at least get some news from him and some contact. And so then the other pastimes went. But so then at one point again, Mahaprabhu actually really wanted to go to Vrindavan, and so he, but again, the beauty of the Supreme Lord is that even though being supremely independent, he loves to put himself under the control of the love of his devotees. So then again he was asking permission from Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and to go. And they actually initially they put some tricks that they delayed him for another, I believe, even 2 years. and so, but then eventually when he started for Vrindavan, because again that chapter that we are talking on here, it's not even Mahaprabhu actually going to Vrindavan, but it's called the Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan, which itself is quite amazing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a whole chapter is written apparently on his failure. But obviously his so-called transcendental failure is a supreme victory, and we don't have time now to go through too much. But perhaps I just have to jump to the part that I specifically wanted to talk on. There are many things, maybe another time. So in any case, so when he eventually started off, there was, like in Kathak, he gave amazing mercy again to Maharaj Prataparudra, and then exchanges with Gadadhar Pandit and so on, which we don't have time now to go into. But when he reached then the border of Orissa, because Maharaj Prataparudra, he ordered his best servants to actually go with Mahaprabhu to assist him in his travels. And that time actually even Mahaprabhu himself, he already so many associates from Jagannath Puri came along with him also. But so when he eventually reached the border of Orissa, then the Mahapatra, the government officer there, told Mahaprabhu that better you stay with me here for a few days, because in the land ahead there is actually, it's ruled by a very cruel Muslim governor who is a drunkard, whom you can't trust at all. And so in fact the situation is such that none of the ordinary people they dare to walk freely on the road, because the situation is so fearful. And so therefore he told him, just stay with me for a few days. I'll somehow try to figure out something with the government, that at least hopefully that we can somehow safely, that you can continue traveling. So that was the situation. And then, but while Mahaprabhu was staying there, actually one spy from the Muslim governor was coming there and was seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when just by him seeing Mahaprabhu, and means, as we said, along with so many of his associates, so naturally he would have seen them chanting, dancing, because after, when he goes back to the Muslim governor, he tells him that actually I've seen there's a sannyasi from Jagannath Puri who is traveling here, and he's so amazing that he travels along with many liberated persons, Siddha Purush, and all they do the whole time, they just chant the holy names of Krishna, dance, laugh, sometimes roll on the ground, and as that spy is describing those things to the Muslim governor, then he also says that, so seeing his influence, I accept him as to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after finishing his presentation, he himself starts chanting and madly in ecstatic laughing and everything out loud. And then, so seeing that, the Muslim governor himself, remember, who was up to the point actually a cruel drunkard, so his heart immediately changed actually. So much so he immediately sent his own secretary now to go to the place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and beg him to allow the Muslim governor a darshan with the Lord. And so, and as that secretary does that, he so actually he doesn't talk directly to Mahaprabhu, but he talks to the Mahapatra, to the Orissa governor, government officer. And so he tells him, okay, if that is the case, that the governor has had a change of heart, then he can come, but without weapons and only a few servants. So like that, and then he goes. And then when the Muslim governor himself actually goes to the place of Mahaprabhu, it's mentioned even by seeing Mahaprabhu from a distance already, he falls down, paying his obeisances, and already develops ecstatic symptoms of love of Godhead. That he, in choked voice, he chants the holy name of Krishna, and then so much so that he is not even able himself to continue approaching the Lord, but then some of the others, they actually take him by the hand, take him to Mahaprabhu directly, and then when he's in front of Mahaprabhu, with folded hands, he stands there chanting Krishna. He then begins to condemn himself that actually how is it that I had to be born in a Muslim family and thereby being so far away from you. If I had been born in a Hindu family, then it would have been very easy for me to be close to your lotus feet. And so lamenting like that, he actually that itself is amazing. Like, remember, he was a Muslim governor, so he had a powerful, wealthy position, and generally he would have had no regard for Hindus. And then, but just by seeing Mahaprabhu, initially from a distance already, and then into him, his perspective completely changed. That he felt that all the position he had, it was just useless. So that's again coming similar to like today's verse, to the point of how getting the mercy of the Lord completely detaches us from. That's like one of the symptoms, as you know, from that virakti is one of the symptoms coming as a byproduct of getting bhakti. And and then Mahaprabhu, seeing him like this, he mercifully glanced up on the Muslim governor and told him that again instructed him that just chant the holy names of Krishna and Hari. And then immediately the Muslim governor was asking for some service, and Mahaprabhu had then Mukundadat tell him that yes, you can. There's some service you can render. You can help Mahaprabhu to cross or to go to the bank of the river Ganges through that. Because remember, it was a dangerous territory. All of that, not only from the apparent. It was said there was many pirates and so on as well. But yeah, in terms of him getting the order of, or him rather asking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for service immediately, Prabhupada explains Srila Prabhupada that is a natural symptom of when we actually have the mercy of Mahaprabhu, then we actually have a taste for chanting, then naturally also we want to render service to the Lord. So that is the reaping the results of chanting, Prabhupada explains there. And and then that Muslim governor, he has 10 boats getting ready filled with soldiers to protect the Lord going through that area, and specifically one boat newly constructed for Mahaprabhu himself. And so then eventually when they come through that area of the Muslim governor, then when he has to part from the Lord, it's amazing, it's described there that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says that the ecstatic symptoms of separation that the Muslim governor felt from Mahaprabhu cannot even be described. So yeah, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, obviously he's the Supreme Lord, but his potency of turning an apparent enemy who would have been such a great obstacle on his travel towards Vrindavan into a friend, into an ecstatic lover of Krishna. So I guess we'll stop here. Yeah, any questions? Okay, Grantaraj Chimapakasam ki, Prabhupada ki.